One of the conventions of crime fiction that we often see is the appearance of the naked, tortured female form. And I think within the cutting room, I wanted to acknowledge that, but also to pull away from that. And I think perhaps that's where the use of the photographs come in, that idea of the slight distancing, but also the gaze that the focus that we have with a photograph. And also, I suppose, the idea that with a photo, we don't know whether it's real or not. And Rilke's search is not necessarily just to find out who did this, but to find out if this actually happened. Did this occur? What's its provenance? My name's Louise Welsh. I'm a writer. I'm a Scottish writer. I live in Glasgow. I'm now Professor of Creative Writing at the University of Glasgow, which is where we are today. And The Cutting Room was my very first book. It came out in 2002, and its main protagonist is an auctioneer called Rilke. And Rilke is a gay man, and in the course of his business, in the course of clearing a house in a posh part of the city, he comes across some really disturbing photographs. It's a nasty book. It's always hard to know exactly where ideas come from. I think they come from lots of different places all at once. I was working as a second-hand bookseller when I started to write The Cutting Room, and so I guess that idea of what happens, the origin of things, where do they come from, and what happens if you find something that you're not happy with, what do you do about it, what are your responsibilities? Perhaps it came from that. I had a friend who told me about clearing the house of a very respectable gentleman who had died, and up in the attic he found all of this pornography, and nobody in the family was really very happy when he presented this to them. So I suppose that aspect of we all have some things hidden. Sometimes they're not dramatic things. Like a lot of Scottish writers, I'm interested in the Gothic, and that idea of what lies underneath is very much a part of Scottish Gothic. If you think of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Stevenson's masterpiece, or James Hogg's Justified Sinner. So I guess I was drawing on those influences. As a queer woman, I was also thinking about where queer people sit in society, and at that time in the 2000s when I was writing this book, we were seeing the campaign to keep Clause 28, which, for those who don't know, Clause 28 outlawed, let me get it right, the promotion of homosexuality. But what that meant was that people didn't teach about queer lives within schools. It meant that queer organisations wouldn't get funded. I think something like 75% of the population within Scotland agreed that it was wrong, according to surveys, to be gay at that point. So I guess all of this is encapsulated in this book to an extent, but it's also a very funny book. The action of The Cutting Room doesn't take place entirely after dark, but it is quite a nocturnal book. And this is Kelvin Way. This is one of the streets that Rilke walks after dark. And it's one of the streets that I used to walk and continue to walk actually a lot, because I lived at one end and I worked at the other end. So I would walk up and down here, and I think it's one of the most beautiful streets in Glasgow. It was also a cruising ground. You can see there's the university grounds on one side, there's the park on the other side, and that's the other reason that Rilke's here. In many ways, I suppose The Cutting Room is a book that's anti-hypocrisy. It's a book that's also about societal transgression. Rilke is transgressing, and yet he's doing nothing wrong. All the sex that he has is consensual. All of his encounters are consensual. Nevertheless, of course, this is a dangerous space because it's identified as a cruising ground. It's a space where you might find yourself getting beaten up. It's also a space where you might come into encounters with the law, and this is what happens to Rilke. He's part of a police raid on the park, and these things used to happen. So yeah, this is a pivotal moment in the book when transgression, hypocrisy, law all collide, and they collide here. So I'm a lover of sensation fiction. You know, I'm a lover of thrillers, noir, hard-boiled crime. I'm a fan of a really good ghost story. I love all of that. I love to be frightened. I love to be thrilled, sometimes disgusted, you know, all of that. I believe in the power of words, and I'm kind of fascinated by that magic that you can be taken somewhere else. Historically, in something like crime fiction, who gets killed? Who's the person that's murdered? The queer, the so-called immoral woman, the person with the limp, the person who's not from around here. And I guess those conventions can be a gift to a writer like me because they're very easy to turn around. You know, so Rilke is perhaps somebody who more traditionally would be the villain or the person who's dispatched and who's murdered. And this isn't completely original, this isn't new. Val McDermid was working with queer characters really early on, but it was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to have Rilke being not the villain or the victim, but to be the not quite hero of the piece. And I guess that's the thing, he's a complicated person, but he's his own person, and he's got his own code of moral values, which he sticks to. He's got his way of being in the world. Glasgow's the place that I live. Glasgow is where I was living when I wrote The Cutting Room 20 years ago. And I think the thing I like about it most is its weather. I wrote the book here because I lived here, and I think that's the main reason for Glasgow as a setting. But perhaps the reason that I live here is because it's interesting. It's a large city, it's a very green city, and like all cities, it's full of interesting people. So I don't want to make great claims for this city and say, oh, this is the best place in the world and this is the best place to be. It's a city like any city that has problems, but it is the place that I need to be. It's the place where I need to live. And I think it's probably the place where I'll die. But I'm hoping not too soon, and I'm hoping not of pleurisy from standing in the rain. Cities have things in common. I remember I got a letter from somebody in China, and they said, you have written about your city, but actually you've written about Beijing. And that was the biggest compliment that somebody could give, because of course I'm trying to evoke the particularities of this place. But actually, all cities have their busy centres, all cities have their queer scenes, all cities have their dangerous areas, all cities have the underlying thing that you only know if you're interested in it. So I like to, you know, I hope it's the particular, but also there's an element of the universal in there. Perhaps my favourite thing to do in a city, maybe because I'm a bit lazy, I like going through the city at night in the back of a taxi cab. I love that whee of lights, and if there was anything that I could change about Glasgow, I'd add more neon. I think we need more neon in this city. I didn't go straight to university. I worked in an office for about 18 months, and that was a very useful time because it taught me that I didn't want to work in an office. So I went to university. I was the first person in my family. I was very lucky. I came to this institution, and when I graduated, there weren't a great deal of jobs around at that time, and I started to buy and sell second-hand books, and then I opened a little shop. I had a capital of £300, opened up a very small stall that grew into a shop, and I think it was an attempt perhaps to get closer to the book, to get inside the book in the way that actors often work in ticket offices or, you know, in cinemas as ushers. I worked in the bookshop, and I think that experience really did feed into The Cutting Room and the background, the world that Rilke is a part of. The Cutting Room, I think, is a book that delights in place. It delights in auction rooms, antique shops. It delights in bookshops, it delights to a great extent in this particular bookshop, Voltaire and Rousseau, which any reader in Glasgow probably knows about. Voltaire and Rousseau at the bottom of Otago Lane, where it has been for decades, and it's part of the inspiration for Steenie's bookshop in the cutting room. Inside they have oceans of books. They let you paddle in them, they let you swim in them, they let you drown in them. This place is full of ideas. The door is open and anybody can walk in, and anybody does. I want to give them an advert. Come on down to Voltaire and Rousseau and see what you can find. Part of what made me take my writing more seriously was I got signed up to do a master's in creative writing between the University of Strathclyde and the University of Glasgow. I think it was the first master's programme in Scotland. We were one of the first intakes, and I had fantastic mentors there. Professor Zoe Wickham, who just was so hard on me, encouraging, but hard as well, you know. And I went in one day and Zoe said, "These short stories are all very well, but I think you should be writing a novel." And then I went home and I started to write this novel, and I brought her the beginning of it next week. And that was towards the end of my period on the course. And then I went off and I just continued to write it. So Zoe Wickham, Professor Willie Maley, the people around me were really encouraging. I got a lot of encouragement. And then I felt that I owed it to them to do it as well. So you're not just writing for yourself, you're writing for the people that gave you that little boost, that wind beneath your wings. I did very little research. You know, I just drew on my own knowledge, the places that I went, the people that I knew, the work that I was doing, the auction houses that I went to. I think first novels are often like that. You're doing research for years without actually knowing that you're doing research, and then you have this huge, vast amount of knowledge and impressions to draw on. Like any book, I wrote The Cutting Room bit by bit, and this is my tip to writers: if you just keep on going, in the end, bit by bit, you have a novel. I wrote a lot of it. I didn't have a lot of money, and I wrote a lot of it about a yard from where I slept. You know, I just wrote it in my bedroom, but I also went to libraries. I went to the Mitchell Library, and I went to the University Library, and I still go to these places. You know, we're talking during lockdown now, and I'm really missing going to the library. I'm missing getting out of the house, pretending like I have a proper job, taking my computer and being, again, I guess that's going back to the bookshop, that idea of being surrounded by books. But I like working where other people are working, because it speaks to you and it makes you think, get your finger out, get a move on, concentrate, do this thing. So it's interesting when you talk about inspirations for your own books. It's 20 years since I've written this, and I think the process of writing the book wasn't a cold one. The process of writing it was kind of fire and anger and humour as well. You know, there's bits of it that made me just laugh out loud in the way that you shouldn't laugh at your own jokes. But you're not as clear about, oh, this is what I'm doing. And I think the thing also about writing a first book, you've got no guarantee that it's going to be published. You've no guarantee that anyone's going to read it. I was a second-hand bookseller. I had thrown out shoals of books to the dump that nobody wants to read anymore. So I think the process of writing it, yes, I did want to be published. Yes, I did want to be read. But I had no illusions. I thought this would be a very marginal book if it came out at all. It was set in Glasgow. It was about a queer man. I didn't think that many people would be interested. And it cheered me up hugely. It cheered me up really hugely that not only queer people read it, but straight people too. And it began to make me think, you know, the process that perhaps there was more love out there than I'd thought originally. The University of Glasgow means a huge amount to me. It's a place that's changed my life, I would say, possibly 3 times. When I came here in the 1980s as a young student, partying, going out all the time, going to clubs, dancing, meeting people, as well as going to the library and as well as studying. I never imagined that one day I would work here, and I never imagined that I would be appointed a Professor of Creative Writing. It feels strange to mention myself and Edwin Morgan in the same sentence. Edwin Morgan's one of the best modern poets that Scotland has produced. When he was Professor of Poetry here, he would be out to his friends, I'm sure, but it would be impossible for him to be openly gay within this formal university context. This would have been career-ending stuff. Now, in the 21st century, I'm Professor of Creative Writing at this institution, the University of Glasgow. None of my colleagues or students would even think, I think, about finding this problematic, my sexuality problematic. The world has really changed. You know, we have the possibility of equal marriage. You don't have to get married, but you can if you wish to. And it struck me, you know, 20 years on from writing The Cutting Room, that I wanted to explore some of these changes, because there are other ways of being as well. You know, when Rilke initially comes on the scene, mobile phones have started, but there's no Tinder, there's no Grindr, there's no hooking up through the internet, there's no chemsex, you know, there's none of this stuff. So I wanted to have a look at how the world has changed and how Rilke would be in that landscape. So I've written another book. I've gone back to Rilke's world and I've really enjoyed it.